Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and this is part 3 of rebuilding a 2010 Yamaha R6 that we brought from Copart. Now if you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, you can click on the playlist up there. So in part 1, when we brought this bike, we stripped it apart to find out how much damage had actually happened to it and why it was written off. And then in part 2, we stripped apart what was an absolute mess of an engine to try kind of find the cause. But yeah, from that fire powder, it was just minging. So yeah, we've put that in the bin and we are now here. So what are we going to do today? Well, we need to get this frame cleaned down because, as you can see, we still have a load of that minging fire powder extinguisher, which is just sat in the frame. It's all in the loom. It is just, look, it's up for the inlet for the airbox. So we need to get the last couple fairings off. Then we need to take the harness out of this bike. So it's basically just a rolling frame, and then we can get everything all washed down, cleaned up, and then we kind of know where we're at, and then we can start the rebuild. Now, I do actually have an engine for this bike, but at the moment it's getting a bit of work done to the head, so I don't know if we're going to see it in this video. It kind of depends how this all pans out cleaning this down today. So, yeah, I'm going to stop talking and let's get the rear fairings off and let's get our dash and headlight cluster all out of this bike. They're good clips. Do the other ones over here. Let's hope that this even works. Yeah, sound like something clicked out. Perfect. Right, now we can get the rest of these fairings off. We won't be able to just slide the whole rear off because we've got the passenger pegs on anyway. So let's take the top section off and then we can take off the side bits here. So now we should be able to pull that bit off. Lovely. Right, now we're getting to the business end of stuff. Nice loose bolt, love to see it. So to get our rear fairings off, this bracket is probably bolted into like the frame underneath this tray thing here. So let's get this sort of Batman boomerang thing out of the way. We might somewhat be able to just squeeze a ratchet and socket down into there. I'll do 10mm. Perfect. And then I'm going to go underneath now. Jeez, they are so corroded. See you in 2 minutes.
A few minutes later.
No chance. The bolts are so corroded for that number plate bracket that's keeping the rear fairing on. I'm going to tackle that with a grinder later on. So let's turn our attention to getting the dash off, and we just need to undo the couple of bolts on the cockpit subframe there and on the other side. So I managed to knock the GoPro into time lapse, so I'm just quickly removing the few bolts for the cockpit subframe, undoing all the plugs here for the headlight assembly, and then basically once I've got the last few screws out here, I can just pull the sort of headlight assembly and the cowl all out together. Two tiny little clips actually holding that in on the screen. Let's get them out. Yep, well, that's that side out then. Just unplug our dash from the top here. There we go. There's the evil eyes out. Take a look into the channel for the airbox. Lovely jubbly. That is filthy. Let's now unbolt the dash from the back here, get that out. Third and final one there. Perfect. The horn's already had some dodgy connections added to it. I'm guessing that probably broke for an MOT and then they just used them little like bullet connectors to make it pass, but we don't need a horn on a track bike, so that can just all come off. Like Oh, that's all been bastardized. I'll show you in a second now, but let's take that off out of there. And it actually looks like a badger has been working on this bike, because it's just chewed its way through the plastic. And the reason why the badger's chewed through that is to probably accommodate these upgraded brake lines. Now, I think they do look like they're steel braided ones, so go down to the comments and let me know whether they are upgraded ones. I can't really work out what that says. SB4 or SB, yeah, maybe SB4. So yeah, that would be quite nice if we've got some upgraded lines. Maybe have to see how much Brembo calipers are. Probably quite a lot of money. Look at all of this goodness that is trapped on here that needs a very good wash. That brake cable can definitely just come out of there. Oh, hello. Got my, yeah. Got my glove trapped in there. There we go. That's how you remove a lovely cable line. That's probably the quickest I've ever done something. An adjustable clutchless Bluetooth clutch. That is what we've gone here for the track bike. So let's start this end with the harness, because we can unbolt it all from the frame there and then make our way round and start pulling it off. I'm going to get my phone out and take 1,000,001 photos, because obviously I want to put it back exactly how it is and get it all sort of neat and tidy. Jesus, so messy. So let's cut to a time lapse of me pulling the harness and everything off this frame. Let's go. So now we've removed the ECU, the harness, and all the little plugs, we are pretty much left with a rolling frame. Now, to get it out and jet wash it, there's a couple small little things we got to do. Now, when somebody installed these lovely ABM bars, they did actually round the bolts off in up there, so I can't take off my ignition barrel just yet. So I've put a glove over the electrics, cable tied that shut, because obviously I still need the bars to wheel it outside. So we do need to put on the kickstand, so I can take it off of the ABBA Skylift, and then we can obviously leave on the side stands. We wash it down. I might take the rear sets off, because I could probably get about £3.50 for that. So we're going to make some money back. And then, yeah, we're going to disconnect our other rear set with our brake caliper and all that on, so we can get rid of that. And then I believe, oh yeah, let's take off the sort of rear mud guard there and our chain guard, and then we can take it out and give everything the best wash down of its life, and hope that the frame hasn't, not melted, but hopefully hasn't took any of the paint off, and we will be all right to just kind of put the harness back in after we clean it all up and get going. So yeah, let's get the side stand on next. God, this is such a crusty, horrible thing. To be fair, I do only need part of it, but because of how minging it is, I am just going to install the whole lot of it. And then while we're here, we might as well remove this rear set. Straight on Facebook Marketplace for all of about £3. Lovely jubbly. And off with this mud guard. I actually like this. This is probably maybe the only thing we will be keeping on the bike. Probably the only thing that is half decent on the bike, I should probably say. Just had to quickly unclip that brake hose from the mud guard there. Let's now that one off. And our other rear set with the rear brake master cylinder, we'll probably just remove the caliper and the line with it, and then that way we can get into the frame and clean it all nicely. So let's get this off. Right, I think the GoPro got too hot and cut out yet again, so hopefully Santa Claus is going to upgrade this camera for me, because I definitely need a new one. So let me show you, we did get our rear set with our master cylinder off and also the rear caliper. Look at the state of the brake pads. They look like they've been in there from day one. We will be reusing the master cylinder and the rear caliper, so we'll have to give them a clean up and also, yeah, definitely get new pads. So let me know in the comments what adjustable rear sets you guys are using or what you think is a good brand, because yeah, I'm definitely not going to be using the original ones. I definitely want a nice adjustable set. So yeah, let me know. But now is actually going to be my favorite part, because this frame is completely stripped down and it is finally ready for its first real deep clean. And I think also I'm ready for a clean because of this stuff. It's just minging, it's everywhere. So yeah, let's finally get the bike outside and give it a clean. And look how clean she is. So I've just brought it in, put it back on the ABBA Skylift. But look at these wheels. I actually love them. Excuse that dusty, horrible, rusty sprocket, but them wheels come out really nice. There is a tiny bit of damage to them, but more than happy to use them. So yeah, really happy with them. And the frame actually cleaned up so nice as well. No more horrible fire extinguisher powder covering everything. Even the dash cleaned up really nicely. So what damage do we have on this frame? And then the only actual damage on the swing arm slash frame is this bit here. Now, if we take a look at this side of the swing arm, it looks pretty clean and in really good condition. Whereas this side where we had that chain guide seal that ran around this, obviously where it started to melt and sort of maybe some of that fire powder extinguisher stuck to it, it has corroded that thrust washer sort of pretty badly. Now, you've got two bearings in this side, and if it did get too hot or even slightly warm, I don't know if the bearing's going to be picked up. So the best thing to do is new bearing in either side and two new thrust covers. So I need to get onto Yamaha and sort that out. And also the suspension on this bike will need upgrading. Of course, we're going to have to service the forks anyway. So it's going to make sense if I phone K-Tech first thing Monday morning, order a set of springs for the forks, the seals and the bushes, and also a spring for the rear shock absorber. Now, I just don't have the budget to go out and buy a set of, Olin suspension or even the fork cartridges, because they are just, it's thousands of pounds. It's massive money. I have brought an engine for the bike, which you will see very soon. I've probably put most of my budget on the engine. So, yeah. But the suspension, K-Tech springs are going to be perfect for me. I'm a novice rider when it comes to, track days and stuff, so I don't need the best of the best in suspension terms. So a set of springs will stiffen it up and make it a lot better for me. So I'm going to have to order them very soon. And also, I forgot to mention about this. This is a servo for the stock exhaust. Now, under here, we've got some cables that obviously connect to this wheel, and there's a plug on the back. So once you fire this bike up and it's idling, these cables here make sure that the valve is shut, so it just sort of keeps a bit more back pressure, I believe, in the exhaust to kind of let it warm up, and it keeps the idle noise down. So we're not going to need this because we are going to be putting an aftermarket exhaust on, so we can remove that. And then also down here, we've got one more bracket. That was for the stock exhaust as well, so that will be able to go as well. So I need to go give Yamaha and K-Tech a phone call because I do need to order some parts up. But while I do that, let me leave you with a time lapse of me cleaning up this loom, going through every single plug and making sure that there is no more of this horrible yellow sticky Colombian powder. Oh, this part of the loom is pretty thick, so now we're at the engine harness side of things. To be fair, you can now kind of tell because there's quite a bit of road grime and a few bits of the plugs and that, but I am just using electrical cleaner, by the way. This isn't brake cleaner, so it just sort of isn't as harsh on the cables. Pretty much probably the same stuff, to be honest with you, though. Probably still going to be high as a kite once I finish this. The more I clean of this wiring harness and I'm going through bits and pieces, I am like, no idea what that plug's for, no idea what this plug could do. So yeah, this is going to be quite interesting putting it all back together again. And there we go. I can't even fully lay the harness out because I just don't have enough room, but it's cleaned up really nicely just using that electrical cleaner. Just helps to drive any of the dirt and the moisture out of any of the plugs, especially just trying to get any of that sort of corrosive powder out. because of that would just end up rotting the pins and we would have massive problems down the line. So yeah, kind of really happy with how it's cleaned up. And as we put the loom back in the bike, again, we can just give it another sort of wipe as we go to make sure it is definitely nice and clean. So loom is ready to go back in the bike.
3 days later.
So a couple of days later, we've got a set of springs from K-Tex. We have a rear spring for the shock absorber and also a set of stiffer springs for our front forks. So let's go over to the bike and remove the rear shock absorber. And while we're here, we're going to get the old exhaust bracket out of the way and also that sort of valve system for the exhaust. We can remove that as well. Fresh set of batteries might have helped. And that right there is weight reduction. Let's come up the top and actually let's just put a bit of lubrication in that nut. There we go. Right, so we've loosened that off now. Let's drop down the bottom here. And then behind here, we've got a bolt for the bottom of the shock, but we have this dog bone in the way here, so I'm going to remove that next. There we go. That's one way to take all of the weight off the rear shock. Probably not the best way to do it, but that has now dropped down. And then now I'm going to do the same for the rear shock absorber, just to undo that. Right, so our top cap is now completely undone. I should be able to come around here and kind of lift the shock absorber to take the weight off the dog bone as such and push out that bolt, in theory anyway. Yeah, there we go. Come back round. So I've now completely undone the top nut at the top there, and then if I kind of just take the weight off the dog bone, I can then pull that out. And as you can see, our shock absorber has a good bit of play now. So there we go. And what an absolute disaster that was. I just knocked the camera over and I've just smashed the glass for the audio. Okay, so after knocking the camera over and actually using two hands and probably getting in where I should do, so I disconnected that part off the top of the rear shock and I was able just to then pull it straight out of the subframe. So what I'm going to do is send this off and have a specialist go over it, because this is probably one of the most overlooked parts on a bike that probably doesn't really ever get serviced by a lot of people. So my guess is it's probably never had a service, so it's going to go off, have the oil changed, probably the seals, and then we're going to have that new K-Tex spring put on. So it's probably going to come back looking like a new shock. And there we go, guys. So that is going to be the video for today. I do apologize it took so long for this video to come out. I did have quite a lot of problems sort of moving forward with the engine that I brought. It needed a lot more work than I was ever anticipating. So I kind of got stung a bit, which we will talk about in the future video. But wow, this engine is going to be an absolute piss missile. So you don't want to miss that. So if you've enjoyed this video, go down there, hit the like button, hit subscribe. It's free. It doesn't cost you nothing. And then you'll just be able to come back and see the rest of this build, because of, yeah, this is definitely going to be one hell of a race bike. And then in the next video, we will be putting the suspension back in this bike. We'll be changing the springs, full service on the forks. And then obviously we need to address that swing arm. We need to change the bearings and that thrust washer, and then get the shock back on. And then we've actually got a rolling frame with a harness that we can put back in the bike, and the engine should be back by then. So yeah, let's get this build done.